Ready to stop trading time for money and build a business that can scale? Then you're in good company. This is the Productized podcast, where I chat with entrepreneurs who've transformed their businesses using the Productized service model. I'm your host, Brian Castle. Want to learn my best strategies for productizing your business? Then get my free crash course by going to productizecourse.com. Now let's get into the show. Hey guys, got a good one for you today. Today is it's actually a coaching call, which turned into quite an interesting case study. It's my conversation with Chris Ronzio, who is an accomplished entrepreneur himself, but in recent years he's been working as a business consultant, helping other entrepreneurs organize the chaos, if you will, and kind of figure out what to prioritize in order to move forward and actually grow and make the right, smart decisions. And so he's been offering this one-to-one consulting service with businesses for years. But in his words, he decided that it's time to think bigger than just himself. And he wanted to launch a business or a new brand, which is at organizedchaos.com. And his goal was to grow this consulting service beyond just himself so it can turn into something bigger. And so in this coaching call / case study interview, whatever you want to call this one, you're going to learn how Chris landed his first 20 clients for a $60K launch in the first month. It's pretty impressive. Also, you're going to learn ideas for standardizing the way that he consults with clients so that eventually others can actually take his place and do some of the consulting work that normally has just been him. We talked about next steps for delegating the tedious writing and the prep work with the reports that he would give his clients. Talked about identifying and focusing on the specific pain that actually leads clients to a service like this. Really important. So let's get right into it. Here's my conversation with Chris Ronzio. So yeah, we'll start off this coaching call. As I said, I'm coming at this a little bit cold, and I did kind of click around the website a little bit. Organizedchaos.com, and it looks like you've had a pretty successful launch. It says that it's sold out, but I mean, I'm interested to hear. Well, in your words, why don't we start off? What do you do? How do you describe your business today?
Sure. So Organized Chaos is kind of like the solution to entrepreneurs feeling overwhelmed and stressed and not knowing where to start or what to tackle first. So I've been doing the consulting for the last few years after I sold my last business, and it started off with just doing kind of systems, processes, consulting for different business owners to help them streamline their companies. But everything I was doing was totally custom. So the one commonality between every entrepreneur that I worked with was that when I came into the company, they were totally overwhelmed. They had too much on their plate, not enough time, all these projects that they wanted to get done, and they felt like they were kind of treading water. So Organized Chaos is a project I came up with, or a packaged service that can be delivered in a real streamlined fashion that solves that issue directly and kind of gives them a plan. Got it.
Cool. And so correct me if I'm wrong, is it kind of you doing a coaching service with entrepreneurs, or is there something else?
Yeah, so as of right now, it's step one, phase one is me doing what I'm doing in a much more systematic way with a packaged price and a clear deliverable at the end, and that's kind of how I launched. And then where this is moving is having other people deliver the service. So I could take you through kind of the whole program and what it is.
Yeah, sure, please.
So kind of the way I've broken it down is I think there's three steps. There's every business has some kind of context for their company, and any person that's getting involved with working with a business, whether it's an employee or a consultant, has to understand that context. So you need to know simple things like how's the company make money? What's the business model? What's the process? If it were an assembly line, how does something move through the company start to finish? Who are all the people that are involved in the company? Is there an org chart? And then where's the company going? Like what's the big goal? What's the vision? What are you moving toward? So that's context, and that's where I start with the project. It's usually a half day with the business owner to kind of go through all of that and understand their company. Then the middle of the project is all about capturing the chaos that exists and harvesting all of the ideas and issues and inefficiencies that create the stress. So what that is one-on-one interviews and surveys with every employee in a company. And so it's basically just harvesting all of everything that's on their mind. So everything that makes their job harder, everything that they wish were different, things that previous employers did that they wish their new company did. And it's really cool to come in as an outsider and get a lot of that stuff cataloged that employees wouldn't normally give up to their boss.
Yeah, I was going to say that must be the value there, is that you are this third party person, and you probably get the employees being a little bit more open.
Totally, they're so candid. It's if you've ever seen the Undercover Boss show on CBS, it's really hard for an owner of a company with like 5 or 10 employees to play undercover boss because they're basically friends with everyone. So when I come in for a day through this project, they don't know that I've kind of been armed with all of the context about issues with people and the dynamics of the company, but I can really get in there and play that undercover role, which is hugely valuable.
Yeah. Cool. So, and then it looks like you kind of go through a number of other steps to kind of leverage those takeaways and give them kind of a roadmap.
Yeah, so the once all the chaos is captured, we put it all in one place. We usually end up with 100, 200 different opportunities or things people could put their time into. And some of them are as small as, get new chairs or fix the toilet. And some of them are huge, like build a marketing funnel and go after a new market. So we take all of those things and then we group them by what's similar, and we get rid of the bad ideas, and it's just there's a processing component where we go through and just get a clean list of projects that the company could tackle. Mm-hmm. And then the last piece is to kind of prioritize and decide what's going to make the biggest impact to get the company to where they're trying to get to this year. And so the end result is just this big plan where they have some quick wins, which this is hugely valuable. It's like the 5 or 10 little things that you can do in a week or less, like buy your person a new microphone for the calls they have at their desk, or a headset or something. Mm-hmm. The real simple things that give the employees a sense of progress and momentum, and so we always do those first, and then it's the 5 or so big projects that they're going to tackle through the rest of the year with some real clear increments or milestones to hit.
Very cool. So this is your coaching call here. So I definitely want to make sure we cover whatever pressing questions you have right now, or just areas that you're thinking about, and to help you move forward. Just for so I get a little bit more context here. I mean, what were you doing before this?
Before the consulting, or before the Organized Chaos project?
I guess before the Organized Chaos project. So
I've been doing this consulting just at chrisronzio.com for a while, and so Organized Chaos is kind of my effort to make it not just me as a consultant, but to create a brand and a process and something that can grow beyond me. So definitely reconciling that has been a huge challenge to over the last few months.
And how long have you been doing the consulting?
Since 2012.
Okay, so a couple of years now. Very cool.
Yeah.
And you said that you built and sold a company before that?
Yeah, my last company was totally separate. It was a video production company that did live sporting events. So
wow.
we had 11 employees in 3 different offices around the country, and then like 350 contract camera operators taping everything from figure skating to equestrian events to some pretty cool stuff. But it was totally different than this.
Huh. Cool.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I do have a bunch of questions about like who your most ideal clients are, but I just so I'm clear on what you're doing with Organized Chaos. It sounds like okay, so it's like your consulting the last few years has been basically doing this kind of consulting that we've been talking about. Organized Chaos is technically it's still you for now, but the idea is that this is a brand, and this is not Chris Ronzio, and eventually this is going to turn into other coaches and consultants that you train on your methodology and your system to go into companies and do your process. Am I understanding that?
Yeah, totally. So, there's a lot of independent consultants out there that they're good at something. They're really good at marketing or sales or operations or finance or whatever they consult on. And some people align themselves with like the author of a book and they consult on that system. But for every one of those, there's somebody that's just out there independent like I was, doing whatever they're good at. And so what I saw with Organized Chaos is what I'm doing is really like the foot in the door to any kind of ongoing consulting relationship, because before a company hires someone to be a marketing consultant, they kind of need to know if marketing is the number one thing that they should be working on. So the way I see it is I want this brand and this process to be something that anyone out there could go through as like the discovery or audit at the beginning of their own project.
Got it. Cool. So how has it gone? Like, what was your first step with Organized Chaos to get this whole concept, up and running and launched?
So I kind of created it a little out of desperation. Over the summers are usually pretty slow for business in Phoenix where I am, and so I had taken on a bunch of little short-term custom consulting things that kind of all ended perfect storm at the beginning of October. And so looking at October, I was so busy, but then everything ended and I had zero in the pipeline. And then at the same time, I had just gotten back from a vacation, and I had to go to the hospital for a day, and I was sick, and I had to cancel on a client. So it was just like this whirlwind of, man, I can't just keep trading hours for dollars. Even though it was, good dollars, I realized I was thinking too small. It was just me. Mm-hmm. And so I started thinking, well, how can I create some like big launch around a piece of what I've been doing? And so it was, I went on 99 Designs and I got a logo made, and then I started reaching out to a ton of people. I think I had like 24 lunches or coffees or something face to face in October, just kind of talking through this as an idea.
So these lunches, like, were these kind of warm like potential customers, clients for this thing, or just other people you're getting feedback from?
Kind of both. There were some people that I had, maybe a warm connection to that just I hadn't quoted a project on, and others were people I'd worked with in the past, and I thought I'd just get feedback from them, and others were just kind of business-minded friends. And so I just started putting this out there and saying, like, if I packaged this thing that was, gonna kind of be like a year-end plan for 20 companies, do you think that's valuable? Do you know anyone that would be into this? Could you help at all? So I just had a ton of those conversations, I guess, to kick it off.
Nice. And then how did the actual launch go, or did you iterate, what the solution would be?
I mean, the solution didn't change, but I iterated. It was funny. I had built this. I recorded this video and I sent it out on a Sunday night, which was just telling my whole list of people that I had that there was something coming tomorrow, and they couldn't sign up yet. I didn't give them a URL or anything, but I had this video, and after I sent the video, one of my really good friends, thought I was just sending it to him as a test, and he wrote back to me with like the 20 pieces of feedback of why my video was terrible. And it had just gone out to my whole list. So it was like for that whole night I was up, tweaking the landing page and recording a new video that I sent out the next morning saying like, okay, now you've seen my terrible, cheesy, salesy video. Here's the real story.
Very cool. I mean, version 1 is never never the best
No.
version for sure.
No.
So, I mean, I definitely want to kind of turn this over to you in terms of questions that you're thinking about and next steps. And I mean, maybe things that you learned or things that were challenging through the launch process. Or I mean, what are the kind of the big areas that you're thinking about right now?
Big areas are kind of just where to take this and how to take the work off me. So, with Productized, you say uh, ideally you're creating a system for delivering a service that you as the owner don't have to deliver, and that's where I'm trying to get to. But right now I was, phase one, wanted to go through the process myself so I could refine it and make it better. So kind of my plan is I'm taking 2 weeks off at the beginning of February, to not book anything and to just kind of retool this. Something I've thought about is just doing these launches almost quarterly, because after the project, I had 20 new clients through this, and that's creating a lot of good referral buzz from other people that want the project. But I don't know if I want to increase the price or what I want to do. So I've kind of just been telling these people, I'll get back to you, and pushing them off. And so I'm thinking I might try to do another round of a launch, if that makes sense.
Got it. Yeah, definitely makes sense. So, and what is the pricing for this?
So the project, the special I did was $3,000, and it was roughly about 3 days of time is how I kind of priced it out for myself. So one of the other things I did to, I guess this is probably just standard launch stuff, but I came up with a bunch of little bonuses that I would give people if they purchase on the first day, they got 5 bonuses. If they purchase on the second day, they got 4. Third day, they got the 3. So there was some urgency to buy earlier in the week, and that definitely helped. I did more than half of the sales on the first day.
Very nice.
And then I did a kind of a risk reversal thing where I said if people paid the $3,000 and at the end of the project they didn't feel it was worth it, I would refund their money and pay them $500 because I didn't want to waste their time.
Yeah.
Fortunately, no refunds.
Good. Yeah. So I mean that sounds great. And you said you sold 20 of them.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was.
And did you go through the delivery of all 20 yet?
I've got 4 more that are still open that I'm kind of wrapping up this week and next.
Okay.
So the plan was to do it all in November, December, but I guess I was optimistic with the holidays.
Yeah, holidays are tough.
Yeah.
And so, okay, so is it literally like 3 days of your time for each client, and like those 3 days are dedicated to one client?
Well, so the way I set it up originally was a half day with the owner, a full day of like being in the business and talking to people, and then another half day at the end to back report everything to the owner. And then there was like a little bit of time in the middle of me just creating the reports and stuff. And when I launched this, everyone was eager to start like the next week. So this was stupid, but I just kind of started everyone all at once. And I had, at one point, like 16 or 17 open projects that, my mind was going to explode. So, like halfway through, I made it into a literal 3 days on a calendar sort of thing, so that I could be like 100% in the zone with one company at a time.
That definitely makes a lot of sense. And you can, I mean, going forward, you could even work that into some of the urgency of it, right? Like, we only have X number of spots available this month. And that sort of stuff. Cool.
And kind of first, I guess I could say, when you book early, you have the open pick of the dates.
Yeah. Yep. Awesome. So, I mean, I guess I'm also wondering, like, how did you get those 20 clients signed up? I mean, obviously you have your own audience and list. I mean, so like, what does your audience look like, or like size of the list, and who are these companies? Like, did you find that they're all kind of in the same profile, or are they kind of all over the map?
No, that was another great learning experience through this. So I mean, the list that I have, it's a small list. It's like, or I guess relatively, but like 500 or 600 people. Um, and I've been doing this little newsletter once a week, recommending an app or a tool or something for the last little over 2 years. So I get people trickle in through that and through an ebook and a content upgrade, I guess, right?
Yep.
And so I had built up kind of a little bit of a following there, but only 2 of the 20 companies came through people I didn't know that were just on the newsletter. So the rest of the people were just direct referrals, and it was just kind of from me reaching out to everyone all at once and giving the best deal I had given in the last couple of years.
Got it. That's still pretty impressive, though. I mean, personal network, warm outreach, contacts, and then a few kind of, this isn't cold email, obviously they're in your email list, but people who you haven't met before. I mean, that's a pretty impressive first launch of this thing.
Yeah. So to your point about segmenting or whatever, so when I came out, I've always marketed and tried to focus on people with companies under 50 employees. Mm-hmm. Because things just get a lot more complex when you're bigger than that, and there's different rules, and that's, the companies I like working with, they're kind of under 50 or under 2 million in sales. So my list kind of is those people, but there's a huge difference between a company with 2 employees and a company with 42.
Yep.
And so, getting into this process, like, the time that I had allotted for the talking with people was too much time if it was just like a guy and his friend, and it was too little time if it was like a commercial manufacturing place with dozens of people in the back.
Yep. Yep. And is there any particular industry or type of business that you're seeing a pattern or a trend here, or?
No, all over the board. There were SaaS companies, there were manufacturers, there were retail store, there was agencies, medical. It was really cool, a bunch of different companies. So it's kind of the process of like being stressed out and overwhelmed is kind of industry agnostic.
Yeah, I guess so. So I mean, what do you think about that? I mean, are you excited about working with a wide variety of clients, or are there some that kind of pop out as like, okay, this is a really ideal client for this, and this batch maybe not such a great fit?
No, I kind of like it across the board because you can apply little nuggets of cool ideas from one company to another. Like there's a real estate investment company I was working with that they're like, they hit the phones really hard. They're into this like power dialing thing. And I never would have even experienced that kind of solution. But then the next day I'm in some retail store and they're wanting to launch a program, and it's like, oh, let's set up a dialer and we can get through this list of people a lot more efficiently. So whether
you can leverage like ideas and things from one client to another.
Yeah, totally.
Nice. So I mean, your overall goal right now is to build this to a point where it's not just you. And I guess one question to go along with the last question of like, these are different clients with different problems that they need to solve. So far in this first batch, I mean, how much of it is you coming up with different solutions for each person, and then like iterating based on the feedback that you're getting in real time? Like, how much of that is basically you figuring it out on the fly using your own knowledge and expertise and experience, or is it still following like your standard methodology and your kind of big picture way of building a business?
Well, good question. I mean, it's hard not to want to recommend solutions because that's what I've been doing for everyone for a while. And so I do that just because, but the project, what it's supposed to deliver is not solutions, but just a clear list of projects to tackle. So I'm not promising someone that in 3 days I'm going to revolutionize their business. It's more in 3 days, we're going to get really clear on everything that matters and everything you should be working on so that you can focus instead of being so distracted.
Okay. Um, and so I guess throughout all this, I'm also wondering, like, I know that founders and entrepreneurs, I mean, I am one, and it is hard to stay focused with so many ideas and so many balls in the air. Um, but is that the specific pain point that brings someone to this? And I guess I'm wondering, like, what would attract, what would get, because I mean, okay, so like this first batch, for the most part, they were personal contacts or referrals, so there's that trust and credibility and kind of a recommendation built into that. But
Sure.
if the next round or the next few rounds, the goal is to get strangers to come into this, um, you know, what's that pain point that's going to drive them there?
Yeah, I guess the pain point that people express is just that they they're treading water and their current way of doing things isn't isn't going to work forever. And so they're they've hit a wall of some kind where like they're spinning plates and things are starting to fall between the cracks, and they're like, man, I feel out of control and I need to kind of take a step back and see the big picture and see everything so that I can make some good decisions about what needs to change. Um, so
Is
this,
there a particular event or way that manifests that you can, like, say, I don't know, all of a sudden a company is seeing a high employee turnover rate, or all of a sudden revenue flatlines, or like, what's the thing that kind of triggers that realization that, oh, I am overwhelmed?
that's yeah, I guess maybe they go to a conference or something and they get a lot of good ideas, but then they come back and nothing ever happens to those ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And or they read a book and they've got a lot of a lot of good ideas, and then nothing ever happens, and there's this disconnect between you know the the idea and the execution. And I think it's just, I guess the people that have been referred to me feel like they're in that place, like they just need a silver bullet or something, which I'm not, but it's like it's a great solution to someone who feels like they need that. So yeah, it could be revenues flat. It could be that their like number two person just left. It could be that their biggest customer just left, and they now need to do things totally differently to keep the doors open.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's usually something, but it's not like consistently the same thing.
Got it. Um, so again, like staying focused on your goal of this of building this into a system that doesn't completely rely on you. Looking back on this first batch of engagements that you just went through, I mean, where were the sticking points? Like, as you're going through it, what were some of the challenging kinks in the process of you delivering this kind of, well, I hesitate to say for the first time because you've been consulting for years, but in this capacity, kind of going through this the first time.
Yeah, so the time thing was huge. So I'm trying to come up with like a tiered approach where there's one package for companies that are less than 5 employees, and there's another one for like 5 to 20, and there's another one for 20 to 50. So that's something I'm trying to work through right now. The Before I started, I made like all the final deliverables that I would give someone at the end of the project, and I don't think I used one of those because they didn't end up being practical. So I had to recreate those as I went. And that's the kind of thing I'd really like to get a virtual kind of assistant to help with. So I'm working on that right now. Um,
So some of the so let's talk about that for a second. I mean, some of the so what do you set up there? Like, is it it's like a document, some kind of report based on the findings, or is it like multiple documents?
yeah, it's a few documents, but the main one is like a master project list. And so I'd say the hardest part of this whole thing is as I'm talking with an owner or with employees, I'm getting a ton of feedback, and I just use Evernote to kind of type away as I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to capture all that. But then there's this processing that has to happen away from the client, where I read through those notes and turn them into like actionable projects. Like what would fix this complaint? And so when I I tried to send that to a virtual assistant, and it failed miserably. I just had to throw it away and
I mean, were you
start over.
basically asking them to write it from scratch based on your notes?
Yeah, I was asking them to create the list from my notes, to read through the notes, and every time I hear something that I think is like something to work on, I put a little asterisk at the beginning, and so I wanted them to pull out all those things and then retype them to make them, just reword the sentence to make it more of like a to-do item instead of
Yeah.
a transcript.
Would it make sense for you to create one of these reports once and make it even longer than the one that you would actually deliver? So if you're delivering, let's say like 20 points, I don't know if that's the actual number, you have an internal list of like 50, and those are like template, to do items that your virtual assistant can then, like, based on your notes, just match up your notes with something from your list of 50 written bullet points.
Hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I could definitely provide them with some samples and stuff, which I didn't do. So
Yeah.
I'll for sure have to do that. I thought about doing audio recordings, but then it'd basically be like they'd have to be in the room real time, and that's a lot of hours. Um, so yeah, that's one thing I'm struggling trying to work through.
With the
Uh,
audio recordings, one tip that I've heard from someone once is they record it, but then they do have an assistant or someone process it, but they have their assistant listen to it at double speed. So
hmm,
it kind of, they still get all the content, but it takes basically half the time.
that's interesting.
Um,
Cool.
but yeah, I mean, I would definitely look to standardize this somehow. I mean, I know that there's still going to be some like manual processing done on your end. I mean, obviously you're writing the notes, um, but if it's, I think this would also get easier as you start to focus. If I mean, like if you want to focus on a particular um, industry, but this could also work based on the tiers that you were talking about. Like when it's a business of 5 employees or less, you know, uh, look at template list number one, and out of that are 20 to 30 commonly recommended bullet points, and the virtual and as you type notes, like those can become standardized as well. As you do more of these, it's like as you're listening to them, it's like, okay, it sounds like a case of bullet point number one. This sounds like a case of bullet point number four, and you can kind of start to note those down along with some custom notes, and then the VA would match those up with canned bullet points. But and then even the canned bullet points can have like variables in them, that you can, as simple as like filling in the company name, but also like variables that fill in a thought about this, about how to handle employees or something like that.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
So then you get that back from the VA, and all you need to do would be put the final touches, the final personalization on it, and then it's good to go. And then eventually even that is delegated to a more high level consultant that you would bring on,
Yeah.
multiple consultants.
Okay. Cool. I'm trying to think. So another pain point was I had people pay 50% up front, which was great. But then it was supposed to be 50% at the conclusion of the project, and I didn't like store their credit card to charge them again. So the project would end, and I would send someone a link, and then just kind of wait until they pay. And so I want to do that differently now.
What were
Uh,
you using for payments?
I used Stripe, like a checkout form for the beginning, but I didn't set it up as like establishing it was through Strikingly, which is the website. They have this like beta checkout thing, and it didn't store the cards to be able to charge them again. It just did a
Huh.
one-time transaction.
That's
Um,
interesting. I mean, I use Stripe for audience ops, and um, it does store them like the first time that they go through, but maybe through Strikingly it doesn't do that. But um, what I
yeah,
do is I mean my site is all on WordPress, and I have like a WordPress plugin called like WP Simple Pay Pro, and that allows me to just put a payment button on a page on WordPress,
mm,
and so clients sign up, you know, initially using that, they make the first payment, and then they're just in my Stripe account, and you know I've been able to upgrade them or recharge them, or you
no,
know.
that sounds good. Yeah, I think it was just it wasn't creating a customer. It processed a one-time transaction.
Ah,
It
okay.
didn't create a customer. So yeah, I got to
Even
change
I
that.
mean, yeah, I guess I guess it does need to be like web based, but if you're doing this every quarter and it's only like 20 clients signing up each time,
Hmm.
I mean, I'm sure that'll grow over time, but I mean, that's also something that you could do like in person over the phone. You know, get their information, type them into Stripe.
Yeah, that's true.
Um,
Um, so then I guess the other challenges. I mean, there's a lot of little admin stuff. Like I set up some automation when people signed up, and it had them fill out a form, and then it had them, it sends them my Calendly link, and they scheduled. But had an issue with that where Calendly only lets you book, uh, a day up to a day, and
yeah,
so
you're doing like multiple days.
yeah.
Huh.
Um,
I use Calendly too. Yeah, I guess they don't let you do multiple days.
Yeah, so I needed to find like the 3 day windows on my calendar, and show only the start date.
Well, I mean, there might be an alternative to Calendly that does that.
Yeah,
I don't know, maybe like schedule once or something. But one thought to stick with Calendly. I mean, I love Calendly, so
me too. Yeah,
the you could just have them all start on like Mondays, and then only that event in Calendly you could just it's only Mondays that are available. So like pick a Monday, and that's essentially like picking a week.
yeah, that's a good idea. I don't know why I just assume I need to give people the flexibility to start on a Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, but you're right. I shouldn't.
Yeah, and it could be like a Monday. You could even do like a Monday and a Wednesday. That way you could like fill up like two in a week, and I don't know, somehow overlap the last day or
Yeah,
something.
that's a good point. Okay.
Um, so I mean, like, what else from this launch are you thinking that you'd like to do differently, and any other like kind of questions that are coming to mind right now?
Um, I mean, there's just a lot of materials I need to change. Like as I went through the process of interviewing people, the magic's really in the questions that you ask them. And so I'd be with one company and I'd think of this creative question, and then I'd use it for every other company that I worked with. So like an example, if you ask an employee what they'd like to delegate, they might just be blank, and they haven't thought about that. But if you ask them, if they had a secret employee that worked at their house that no one else knew about, what stuff would they send them? Everybody has an answer to that. So it was so coming up with stuff like that was cool. But now I need to like update all my lists of questions.
Yeah, I like that, and we actually do a somewhat similar thing with audience ops right now, because every new client that we start with, um, we do like a kickoff call, and we interview them for we're doing like blog writing, so we need to ask a bunch of questions to do research to come up with good topics for their audience.
Hmm.
And I've recently kind of removed myself from that process, so the writers are the ones asking those questions. Um, and I think you would do a similar thing as you go along, and bring in other consultants to take your place. You'd want to come up with those standard questions that just really get the right answers every time, with some flexibility of, okay, these are the core questions to start with, but you should do some follow up, custom follow up for each person.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. The other thing that's just on my mind is where to take this. So obviously finding other consultants to do this would be great, but there's also it's also a lot of work, and there's a lot of training, and it's a possibility that they just go rogue and want to do it on their own. So I'm kind of thinking through how to best approach that, and then also, I think there's definitely a software play here, whether it's kind of a complementary product or a standalone product for kind of the DIY group. But where the very similar thing, like the owner could just invite their employees, and they've got it's prepackaged with all the questions, and it fires a question up, and they type out the little one-liners, and it just creates this bank of answers, and then it displays the answers to the owner one at a time, and they drag them into one of the buckets. And I think there could be a software that does a lot of this process.
Yeah, I definitely hear you, and I could see how that would work. But I would definitely hesitate to jump into that so fast.
Yeah.
And if you are going to do that, I would definitely start off with it just kind of powering your service,
right?
And have it, like, even have your once you get into bringing on consultants and assistants, maybe like a lower tiered version of this, they're just operating that software. And they're the ones typing in the questions, typing in the answers as they ask the questions into the software. And then the software then kind of automates the generation of the report or of the hit list that they're going to work on.
Yeah. That's good.
But yeah, I mean, again, like it's that gets back to the what's the burning pain point, and I don't know that. It's yet to be seen or yet to be proven that there are founders who are like actively seeking a do-it-yourself software solution for this. I mean, not to say that there isn't. It's
Yeah, no, I totally understand. I think part of my thought with the software would be, and this is not something I want to do right now. This is like where I could see it going, but the project list that I leave people with, that task list and the priorities, most people have a to-do list manager of some kind that, they don't need another one of those, but it might be nice to have this repository of like the issues that your company's worked through, so that you have some kind of like strategic planning place to look, whether it's quarterly or annually or whatever, just as a checkpoint. So I don't know. There's a lot of loose ideas around that.
Yeah, I mean, I do like that. Like, I think every business owner has something like that. I mean, I've got notepads and apps where I store kind of big picture thoughts and things like that. But I mean, one idea there as you start to expand and offer that DIY solution, which I do think is a good idea as kind of like a next phase of this. Yeah, I mean, there could be a software component, but I think it should also be combined with an educational component or a guide. Like, it could be like a video course that they go through, where you're basically asking the questions or kind of guiding them through this process of using the software in a very specific way, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Well, I'd be interested to know. I mean, I won't be offended if you want to poke holes in this thing. I think the part I struggle the most with is like what you said with finding the pain points and the objections and because so much of the business has been that warm referral business. It's tough to know how a total outsider would look at this.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're doing is really interesting because you're doing what very few consultants and coaches have been able to do, which is grow beyond just themselves as the personal brand behind the thing. And I think establishing the the brand Organized Chaos is definitely the first step of that. I mean, obviously, it's still very much you. You've got the video of yourself on there, and I think that's good. And I mean, maybe that is like there's never going to be, like, you're never going to be completely removed from it, but it could grow into like the Chris Ronzio way, but you're not necessarily working with Chris,
Right.
you know. Like, for example, do you know Brennan Dunn? So he's kind of he's got a pretty sizable audience now. He's and he works a lot with freelancers and consultants, helping them like double their rate and get better clients and that sort of thing. And he sells a couple of courses, and I think one, like his main course that he's selling right now, is called Double Your Freelancing Clients.
Oh, did he have a conference or something that you went to or spoke at?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So he has this big course, you know, which is it's like a video course kind of thing where you pay and then you get access, but then it's also like a 6-month curriculum that the students are following along, and so Brennan invited me and 10 other people to be coaches within his program. So he like, it's still like Brennan Dunn, like he's the face of the thing, he's the main teacher on all the videos, but some of the other aspects of this, like the weekly mastermind calls throughout the 6-month program, are led by these other people who Brennan kind of like roped in to help, you know, expand and I mean serve more students. So it's not all Brennan doing all these calls all day long, but it's still like his material, that if that makes sense.
Yeah, I love that.
I mean, I think, you know, if you look at, like, I'm not even so familiar with how this stuff works, but like, you know, Michael Gerber's E-Myth Revisited, I think he's got a whole, you know, consultancy built around that, where it's,
right,
you know, consultants kind of using his method from the book. You know, I mean, I don't, you know, maybe it's not going to be exactly that, but that could be the kind of the concept of how this thing grows. So it's still built off of you and you building your audience and your personal brand, but the delivery of your solutions come in like you know, low tier, medium tier, high tier. Like low tier being completely do it yourself, kind of educational products. Middle tier might be those educational products plus a little bit of personalized guidance from maybe like one of your consultants on your team, and the high level, the really expensive one, is, you know, time with you.
Yeah. Definitely.
And I think you've started down the right progression of this by starting with the high one, you know, and then introduce the middle and lower as your next steps after you kind of establish this. But yeah, I mean, kind of getting back to that question of the pain point. I mean, that's kind of tough, you know. There are plenty of business owners who seek coaches, right? And there are plenty of businesses who seek consultants to come into their business.
Yeah.
So I think, well, I guess those are kind of two separate things, right? Like there's the personal coach, like behind the scenes, give me guidance on how to make better decisions. And then there's like the business consultant, you know, who it sounds like that's more of what you've been doing, kind of coming in and talking to different people in the company and figuring out next steps. And so, yeah. I mean, I do wonder about like, what is the, like you can, it's easy for you to identify the pain, and you know from your work that there are all these companies that experience these issues, and you know the solutions, but it's also a question of how they perceive it. Like how does your client realize that they have this problem? That's the thing that needs to get figured out, and maybe it's, you know, more content, more, you know, getting yourself and your ideas out there and seeing which things are really resonating.
So I'm curious. I've been going back and forth on whether I should write a book on this, and I actually started an outline, and then I keep getting conflicting advice, like, oh, don't write a book anymore. it's not worth it. It takes too much time. You don't need a book. Focus on just blogs and guest blogging and I put out a small book, like a mini book that's printed with all my like app recommendations, and so that was fun to have something tangible. But do you think it's worth doing like a full blown book around this strategy?
Um, I mean, I would probably fall into the group of saying yes. Like a book could be a good step. It's a question of when. I mean, it sounds like the audience is growing and you've established this, and clearly you've had plenty of people who are willing to pay this money for the high level, like high touch consulting. But yeah, I think in order to kind of like take it to the next level, a book would definitely add more exposure. Like, I mean, sure, blogging and guest blogging and podcasting, like that stuff is going to continue to kind of like water that plant over time, and I think you should do that too. But having a central book with that book solves a very specific problem, and that book is a brand in itself, or it's like the Organized Chaos book or something like that. Mm-hmm. That's kind of like planting your flag, that it kind of establishes this is who you are, this is your thing, this is what your company does. Yeah, I mean, I think that could be good. It's also a question of like what kind of product that's going to be. Is it going to be just a book, like something on Amazon that would essentially be like a lead generator for the higher priced, like the productized service, or is it going to be an actual revenue stream in your business, like a do-it-yourself course for a couple $100 that's a little bit more in-depth, video content, templates and whatnot, that it's a little bit more substantial than an ebook.
Right. Okay. And when the thing you mentioned with Brendan, how he asked like 10 of you to help out, do you have any tips on how to find those people, or how to what channels I should reach out to people through, and then what kind of how to structure the compensation for that? I mean, is it just paying for time, or is it like a split of whatever comes in?
Yeah. So, the payment, Brendan, is I think he's paying like per student who's in the mastermind group, and he found 10 of us who are somewhat well known in these circles, and have audiences and also speak to this same like a similar related audience. Like I'm teaching the Productized course, and that's the kind of stuff that I write about, so it kind of makes sense for me to, and like Brennan and I have done like webinars together and things like that, so yeah, like he kind of got like me and like 9 or 10 other people who are kind of in a similar boat. Yeah, I mean, I think in your case it would also be a little bit tricky to find consultants who can analyze and ask the right questions the way that you do. So that again comes down to you crafting that template question and probably spending more time building training materials for your team. And then it's really just a matter of finding really good communicators and really good listeners and good interviewers, and they don't necessarily have to be. They don't have to have like the business track record that you have. You're just not going to find that. I mean, the people who've built and sold a business are not looking for those kind of opportunities.
Yeah.
So I think it's really just going to have to be, good communicators, good listeners who can first learn your methods and learn your process. And this is actually pretty similar to what I'm doing in Audience Hops a little bit. Like later this year, I'm planning to create like a course or a book, one or the other. That's going to be a standalone product for others to buy and read and learn from, but it's also going to serve a dual purpose of like training our team as they come into Audience Ops, and like train them on this is the audience ops way of doing content marketing. So that's kind of like part of their onboarding and part of their training. And that'll help them. And that, I mean, to kind of come full circle here, the whole idea is to get everything into a standard methodology, and anything that you can do in your high level consulting or the one-on-one sessions to get it to a point where it's like, okay, I'm always working with this type of client, or if there are 3 tiers of clients, that's fine too. But try to reduce the variation somehow, or at least get into some kind of like standardized recommendation or method that can then be, transferred to a team. And the book should be focused on that. Like after you've done 20, 30, 40 of these consultations, it's like, okay, these are the patterns we're seeing. These are the clients who've had the most success. And these are the clients who came in with the most burning pain point. That's how you condense the topic of the book, right? And then right. That's how you condense the standard recommendation that all of this stuff kind of falls into.
Yeah, that's great. I've got a lot to think about. I appreciate it.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, like any other questions or things coming up here? Got like a couple more minutes.
I mean, marketing and lead generation is going to be a huge focus for me now that I've kind of gone through the closest circle.
Yeah, I mean, just hearing you talk earlier about your target customers being kind of so all over the map, I think that would be the first step of developing the marketing plan. Is it's just so hard to market anything unless you have a really clear idea of who you're trying to get this in front of. Mm-hmm. And I know that there's definitely a benefit of working with a wide variety. You get insights from like an e-commerce site, business that you can apply to a medical office, something like that. But any way to kind of become more focused. That doesn't necessarily mean only work within one industry vertical, but
yeah, I hear what you're saying though.
Because then you can find those channels, right, where those people are. It could mean, going to a handful of conferences every year, getting speaking gigs, and finding those conferences where this particular entrepreneur is. If you're like targeting SaaS companies who are, you could kind of do some like online list building and that sort of stuff.
Right. Okay. I've got a few SaaS companies I'm going to send your way for audience ops. I love what you're doing over there.
Oh, that's awesome. I appreciate it.
Yeah. If you're accepting people, actually, so what you said about kind of not accepting new leads for I don't know, a bit there in the 4th month or whatever it was, that's kind of how I feel like I'm in right now, where I need to fix this before I start committing to more people.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened with us. It was like the 2nd or 3rd month, we got a whole bunch of clients signed on, and then it was like, oh, okay, we got to really figure out our systems and processes.
Yeah.
And yeah, it does sound like that's where you're at. I think as you go, kind of document the process and just look out for those sticking points where, especially look out for the things that, okay, you worked with 20 clients, 15 of them went through this path and it was pretty smooth, but one person had this edge case or some question came up during the course of working with them that was like, that really kind of changes the process, or now we have to look at doing something a little bit different just for this one person. When something like that pops up, that's the opportunity to figure out, okay, why did that crop up? Was it that they weren't the right fit in the first place? Was it that we asked the wrong questions, or we skipped something in our process, or how can we avoid this variation from happening too often in the future?
Yeah, that's great. That's what I need to do for sure.
Very cool. Well, cool. I mean, if any other questions come up, definitely let me know. I'm excited to hear how the next phase of this opens up. It sounds like you're off to a pretty awesome start so far.
Yeah, I'm very excited about it. I'm with these 20, I'm right about to hit 100 companies I've worked with total consulting, so I'm going to do a big kind of release around that, and it should be a really cool year.
Awesome, man. Well, yeah, definitely keep me posted, and yeah, we'll talk soon.
Thanks again, Brian. Thanks for all the feedback and all the podcast wisdom that you share with everyone.
I appreciate it. Thanks for tuning in, man. I'll send you the recording of this so you have it, and yeah, cool.
All right. Thanks again.
All right, Chris.
See ya.
Take care. Thanks for tuning in today. Get all the show notes for this entire season at productizedpodcast.com. And to get my free Productized crash course, where I share my best strategies for launching and sustaining your Productized service business, head over to productizecourse.com. All right, time to get back to working on the business.